This is the story that tonight we're going to take a long, slow journey through the unusual, curious, and sometimes downright bizarre foods that people have eaten throughout history. This will not be a quick story. Instead, it will be a gentle, meandering walk through the past, told softly and in great detail so that your mind can slowly relax, wander, and perhaps drift off to sleep. So, find a comfortable place to rest. Perhaps you're already lying down with the lights low and your blankets pulled around you. Allow your breathing to slow as we begin this exploration into the oddities of food traditions long gone. Early human curiosities. Long before cities rose and civilizations flourished, our ancestors were already experimenting with food in unusual ways. Survival required curiosity. People tried roots, berries, and insects, unsure which might nourish them and which might harm them. In parts of ancient Africa and Asia, early humans ate insects not just for survival, but for flavor and tradition. Grasshoppers roasted on hot stones, termites ground into a paste, and locusts dried in the sun became part of ordinary diets. What might sound strange to us today was once practical and nutritious. Even now, anthropologists studying ancient campsites find evidence of charred insect remains. These small creatures provided protein long before the domestication of animals. Imagine, if you will, sitting beside a small fire thousands of years ago, the night sky filled with stars, while families quietly shared roasted grasshoppers, their crackling shells echoing softly in the darkness. Ancient Egypt, odd luxuries. Moving forward into the great civilization of ancient Egypt, we find both extravagance and strangeness in their diet. Egyptians loved bread and beer, but they also had unusual delicacies. One peculiar treat was fermented fish. Small fish were buried in the hot desert sand to rot slightly before being eaten. The strong, pungent aroma was considered appetizing. They also enjoyed lotus roots and seeds, often mixed into stews. Another strange dish included roasted ibises, birds that were sacred in their religion but still appeared on dining tables of the wealthy. Even crocodile meat was sometimes eaten along the Nile, despite the danger of hunting these massive reptiles. Picture a lavish banquet along the river, golden lamps flickering, musicians playing softly in the background, while guests were served platters of roasted birds, fermented fish, and sweet honey cakes. To the ancient Egyptians, this mixture of the sacred, the strange, and the sweet was entirely normal. Ancient Greece and Rome, odd delicacies. When we arrive in the world of ancient Greece, food becomes as much about philosophy as about sustenance. Yet even the philosophers might have raised an eyebrow at some of the stranger foods consumed. The Greeks sometimes ate black broth, a soup made of pig's blood, vinegar, and salt. It was a Spartan specialty, simple, strong, and, to many outsiders, deeply unappetizing. Yet it symbolized toughness and endurance. Moving into ancient Rome, extravagance took a new form. Wealthy Romans dined on dormice. Yes, small rodents, stuffed with nuts and honey. These little creatures were fattened in special jars, then roasted as a delicacy. Romans also adored garum, a fermented fish sauce. To make it, fish guts and blood were left in the sun to rot for weeks until they became a liquid seasoning. It was poured over almost everything, from bread to fruit. Other unusual Roman dishes included flamingo tongues, peacock brains, and jellyfish. To Romans, rarity was luxury. The stranger the dish, the more impressive it was to guests. Picture yourself reclining on a Roman couch, marble floors cool beneath your feet, as servants bring trays of stuffed dormice, steaming garum, and roasted exotic birds. For them, this was the height of refinement. For us, perhaps, it is a story best told at bedtime. Medieval Europe, curious and bizarre foods. The Middle Ages, stretching from roughly the 5th to the 15th century, brought with them a world of contrasts. On one hand, there were simple peasants who lived on bread, porridge, and whatever vegetables they could grow. On the other hand, the nobility indulged in feasts filled with elaborate and sometimes peculiar dishes. One strange feature of medieval banquets was their fascination with color and spectacle. Food was not simply eaten, it was performed. Birds beyond birds. At great feasts, it was common to serve unusual birds. Swans, peacocks, cranes, and even herons were roasted whole. But instead of being presented plainly, cooks would sometimes redress them in their own feathers after cooking, as if the bird had come alive again. Imagine sitting at a long wooden table in a great stone hall, candlelight flickering against the walls, while servants carry in a roasted peacock, its shimmering feathers carefully placed back upon its body. It looked magnificent, though the taste was often tough and gamey. Another curious dish was blackbird pie. Bakers would construct large pies with hollow spaces inside. Sometimes, live birds were placed inside, so that when the crust was broken open, the birds flew out, creating surprise and entertainment for guests. Medieval Christians often avoided meat during fasts, leading to creative and sometimes bizarre fish dishes. One example was lamprey pie. Lampreys are eel-like creatures with a circular, jawless mouth full of teeth. They were baked whole into pies and served as a delicacy for kings and queens. King Henry I of England was said to have died from eating a surfeit of lampreys, meaning he overindulged in these strange creatures. Salt fish, dried fish, and even fish jellies were also common. Records describe dishes where fish was pounded into paste, mixed with spices, and then shaped into artificial versions of other meats. Meat in curious disguises. For nobles, food was entertainment as much as nourishment. Cooks invented dishes known as sautelties, meaning subtleties. These were foods disguised to look like something else. A dish of roasted pork might be reshaped and decorated to resemble a castle, a knight, or even a mythical creature. One recipe described boiling a whole pig, removing its skin, and then stuffing the pig with birds, sausages, and other meats before sewing it back together. The outside looked normal, but the inside revealed an unexpected surprise. Another peculiar habit was serving meat covered in gold leaf. It was not for taste, but for show, glittering proof of wealth and power. Od seasonings or strong drinks. Medieval cooks loved spices. Cinnamon, ginger, cloves, and saffron were treasured, often worth more than gold. Yet they were sometimes used in strange combinations. Fish might be served with cinnamon, beef with sugar, and eggs with rose water. Drinks could be equally unusual. Posset, for instance, was a mixture of hot milk curdled with ale or wine, flavored with spices. It was thick, sour, and warming, something between a drink and a pudding. Peasant curiosities. Of course, not everyone ate such grand feasts. For peasants, strange foods often meant survival. Acorns, boiled weeds, tree bark ground into flour, and stale rye bread were common during famines. In some cases, records tell of bread mixed with ground beans, ferns, or even straw, just to fill empty stomachs. To the poor, strange food was not entertainment. It was necessity, the atmosphere of a medieval feast. If you can picture it now, long tables stretching beneath wooden beams, torches flickering, minstrels playing lutes and harps, jesters performing tricks. On the table sit pies filled with lampreys, roasted swans redressed in their feathers, gilded meats shimmering with gold, and pitchers of spiced wine. To the medieval noble, this was a night of joy and spectacle. To us today, it might feel like a curious, even bizarre dream. The Renaissance and early modern era. As Europe moved from the medieval world into the Renaissance, food began to change. Trade routes expanded, bringing new ingredients from Asia, Africa, and eventually